Her mother watched her get taken out when she was 2.5 years old. By age 3, she's declared illegitimate. At 14, her stepfather comes into her bedroom every morning before she's dressed, tickling her, touching her. And wait till you hear what her chart predicted about how she'd handle power, because this Virgo turned trauma into the most strategic reign England has ever seen. But here's what gets me. There's a Venus placement that explains why she kept hundreds of men obsessed with her for decades without ever marrying a single one. And that Saturn in Cancer, that explains the 3 words she wrote in Latin to make him stop touching her. Let me tell you about the astrological blueprint behind the Virgin Queen, and why her refusal to marry wasn't weakness. It was the most Virgo power move in history. Before we get into this, subscribe if you love astrology deep dives. Hit like if you're ready for this story. And real talk, would you rather have Elizabeth's strategic genius knowing it came with her level of trust issues, or would you pass on that kind of power if it meant never feeling safe enough to love? Comment below, because I need to know where you stand on whether her chart made her unstoppable or just incredibly alone. So, Elizabeth Tudor, born September 7, 1533 at Greenwich Palace, Virgo sun with an Aries moon and Capricorn rising. We're talking about someone with this absolutely wild combination of placements. Let me break this down, because her chart explains literally everything about why she ruled alone for 45 years and became England's greatest monarch. Virgo sun. We're talking meticulous planning, obsessive attention to detail, perfectionism that borders on pathological. But here's the thing about Virgos. They process trauma through analysis and control. They don't fall apart emotionally. They create systems. They fix problems. They perfect things until the chaos can't touch them anymore. Aries moon. This is where her courage comes from. The fire, the independence, the absolute refusal to be controlled by anyone. Aries moon doesn't do submission, doesn't do weakness. This placement gave her the guts to ride into battle at 55 years old while everyone expected her to hide. Capricorn rising, public image mastery, understanding that power is as much about perception as reality. Capricorn rising knows how to build a brand, how to control a narrative, how to turn yourself into a symbol. And Elizabeth? She turned herself into England itself. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Jupiter in Leo in her 7th house. The 7th house is partnerships, marriage, one-on-one relationships. Jupiter in Leo here means her fortune, her expansion, her success. It's in the house of marriage, but in the sign of royalty and performance. Translation? Her partnership was with England. Her marriage was to power itself. The universe literally said, your fortune is in not marrying. And then there's Saturn in Cancer, also in the 7th house. Saturn is restriction, fear, trauma. Cancer is mother, nurturing, emotional safety. In the 7th house of partnerships, this is someone who watched their mother get eliminated for the crime of marriage, who learned at 2 years old that marriage equals death, that emotional vulnerability equals destruction. Saturn in Cancer in the 7th house is the astrological signature of someone who will never, ever feel safe in partnership, because the first partnership they witnessed ended in elimination. We don't have an exact birth time, so some sources debate the moon and rising, but honestly, her sun sign alone explains so much of what we're about to get into. Greenwich Palace, September 7th, 1533. Elizabeth Tudor arrives and everyone is disappointed. Her father wanted a son, needed a son, had literally broken England away from the Catholic Church, ended his first marriage, and risked his immortal soul for a son. And Anne Boleyn gives birth to a girl. The celebrations that were planned get canceled. The letters announcing the birth had to be corrected at the last minute, changing prince to princess. But here's the thing. Even as a disappointment, this baby showed Virgo energy from day one. By age 6, people were commenting on how serious she was, how grave, how she had the composure of a 40-year-old. That's not normal kid behavior. That's a Virgo sun, with Capricorn rising, understanding instinctively that survival requires control. And then the worst thing that could happen happens. May 19th, 1536. Elizabeth is 2 years and 8 months old. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, gets eliminated, not just eliminated. Her father ordered it. had her taken out on charges that were probably false, definitely politically motivated. And here's what's absolutely brutal. They didn't even give Anne a coffin. Her ladies had to put her body in an old arrow chest. Elizabeth gets declared illegitimate that same day. She goes from princess to Lady Elizabeth, from heir to nothing. Saturn in Cancer. The wound is formed. Her Virgo sun immediately starts building protective systems. She gets sent to Hatfield, away from court, and instead of falling apart, she throws herself into learning. Becomes fluent in Latin, Greek, French, Spanish, Italian, and Flemish by her teenage years. Very Virgo behavior. If the emotions are too dangerous, master the intellect. If you can't control who lives or dies, at least you can control information. Her tutor Roger Ascham said she had the intellectual capacity of adults twice her age, that she studied with a focus that was almost unnatural for a child. Of course she did. Virgo's sun needs order, needs mastery, needs to perfect something when everything else is chaos. Now here's where the chart shows up in the absolute worst way. 1547. Her father dies, she's 14. She goes to live with her stepmother, Catherine Parr, who immediately marries Thomas Seymour. And Thomas Seymour, this man, he's almost 40. And he starts coming into Elizabeth's bedroom every morning before she's dressed, tickling her, slapping her on the behind while she's in bed. Let me be very clear about what this is. This is grooming. This is inappropriate. Even by 1547 standards, people thought it was absolutely wrong. Elizabeth's governess, Cat Ashley, told him to stop, called it scandalous. And he said, "By God's precious soul, I mean no evil, and I will not leave it." Catherine Parr. At first she dismissed it as innocent fun, sometimes even joined in the tickling, until she found them in an embrace and finally sent Elizabeth away. But the damage was done. And here's the thing that breaks my heart. Elizabeth wrote 3 words in Latin on a letter around this time, "Noli me tangere," do not touch me. She actually crossed it out first and rewrote it as "nolito me tangere," changing it from a direct command to a third-person plea. Like she couldn't even directly confront him. She had to make it indirect, less confrontational. That's trauma. That's a 14-year-old trying to protect herself with the only tool she has, language. Her Virgo sun files this away, analyzes it, learns from it, and the lesson: men want power through you. Marriage is dangerous. Emotional vulnerability is a weapon people will use against you. Sex and power are tangled together in ways that can destroy you. Catherine Parr passes away in childbirth in September 1548, and Thomas Seymour immediately tries to marry Elizabeth, writes to her, tells people he's going to wed her and use her claim to the throne to seize power. The guy has zero shame. In January 1549, he gets caught trying to break into the young King Edward's rooms at Hampton Court. He shoots the king's dog when it barks at him, gets arrested, executed for treason in March 1549. And Elizabeth? She gets interrogated because they think she was part of the conspiracy. Her interrogator, Robert Tyrwhitt, literally reported, "I can see it in her face that she is guilty." But this is where the Virgo sun and Capricorn rising absolutely shine. She reveals nothing, admits to nothing, stays calm, analytical, precise in her answers. She survives by being smarter than everyone interrogating her, by controlling every word that comes out of her mouth. This moment, this is when Elizabeth learns that her reputation is everything. That one scandal, one accusation, one mistake, and she's done. Virgo sun internalizes this: perfect or perish, control everything or lose everything. Fast forward. Her brother Edward dies in 1553. Her half-sister Mary becomes queen. And Mary's Catholic, paranoid, and sees Elizabeth as a threat. In 1554, there's a rebellion against Mary. Elizabeth gets thrown in the Tower of London on suspicion of involvement. The same place her mother was taken out. Imagine, you're 20 years old. You're in the exact prison where your mother spent her last days. You know your sister could have you eliminated at any moment, but Elizabeth's Virgo sun won't panic, won't confess to things she didn't do, won't give them anything they can use against her. She waits. Patient, strategic. Capricorn rising knows how to play the long game. She survives, gets released, returns to Hatfield, and then, November 17th, 1558. Mary dies, And Elizabeth becomes queen at 25 years old. Now watch what happens, because this is where every placement in her chart activates and she becomes legendary. She inherits a bankrupt country, religious divisions everywhere, Catholics versus Protestants ready to tear England apart. France and Spain circling like vultures, no husband, no protection, every advisor telling her she needs to marry immediately or she'll never survive. And what does Elizabeth do? Virgo sun problem-solving engaged. She establishes the Anglican Church as a middle ground, not too Catholic, not too Protestant, practical compromise. This is Virgo energy, finding the solution that works even if it's not perfect. But here's where it gets absolutely genius. The marriage question. Every single powerful man in Europe wants to marry her. Her own council begs her to pick someone. And Elizabeth? She turns the marriage negotiation into a diplomatic weapon. She doesn't say no. She says maybe. She strings them along, plays suitors against each other, uses the possibility of marriage to get treaties, alliances, money, military support, all without ever actually committing to anyone. This is Jupiter in Leo in the 7th house. Her fortune comes through the appearance of being available for partnership while actually maintaining complete independence. Virgo's strategic brilliance meets Capricorn's understanding of political theater. And then there's Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, the love of her life. They'd known each other since childhood. She made him master of the horse immediately when she became queen, called him her eyes, her sweet Robin. She was genuinely attracted to him. The Aries moon doesn't fake passion. But here's the problem. He's married until 1560 when his wife Amy Robsart dies in suspicious circumstances, falls down the stairs, dies of a broken neck. The death was ruled accidental, but rumors that Robert was involved never stop. And this is the moment. She could marry him. She loves him. He loves her. They could actually be together. But Saturn in Cancer says absolutely not. Her Capricorn rising looks at the optics. Marrying a man surrounded by rumors of murdering his wife? Marrying a subject instead of foreign royalty? Her Virgo sun analyzes every angle and sees nothing but risk. So she doesn't marry him. But she doesn't let him go either. She makes him Earl of Leicester in 1564, keeps him close for 30 years, uses him, loves him, never gives him the power of being her husband. For 3 decades, she manages this relationship. He eventually marries her cousin Lettice Knollys in secret. Elizabeth finds out and she's furious, banishes Lettice from court forever. But she forgives Robert, takes him back. Because her Aries moon won't let her fully let him go, but her Virgo sun won't let her fully have him either. This is the pattern. She keeps young men in competition for her favor. Walter Raleigh, the Earl of Essex later on. She flirts, she charms, she makes them believe they have a chance. Aries moon loves the passion and attention, but Virgo sun and Capricorn rising never ever lose control of the dynamic. Meanwhile, she's crafting the Virgin Queen image. This is where Capricorn rising becomes absolutely iconic. She transforms from woman to symbol, creates elaborate costumes with gold and silver thread, pale makeup, red wigs. Every detail calculated, very Virgo. Nothing is left to chance. The Virgin Queen isn't about actual virginity. It's branding. It's saying, I'm married to England. You can't have me because I belong to the nation. It makes her untouchable, turns her from a woman with a body and desires into an idea, an icon. Her Virgo perfectionism shows up in how she runs the country. She personally edits documents, makes ministers rewrite proposals over and over, micromanages everything. Some people find it exhausting, but it works. She's solving problems nobody else sees because she's paying attention to details everyone else ignores. 1570s and 80s, Catholic plots to eliminate her. Multiple attempts on her life. Her spy master Francis Walsingham builds an intelligence network. And Elizabeth? She survives through careful analysis. Virgo's pattern recognition catches plots before they fully form. Mary Queen of Scots, Catholic, has a claim to Elizabeth's throne, has been Elizabeth's prisoner for 19 years because she's the focus of every conspiracy. The Babington plot proves Mary was involved in planning Elizabeth's elimination, and Elizabeth has to decide, sign the death warrant or don't. This is Virgo torture, because Virgo wants to analyze every angle, every consequence, every moral dimension. She agonizes over this decision for months, rewrites the warrant, questions it, but eventually Capricorn rising's ruthless pragmatism wins. Mary gets eliminated in February 1587. Elizabeth reportedly claims she didn't mean to send the warrant, that it was her secretary's fault. Classic political move? Maintain the image while doing what needs to be done. The Spanish Armada. 130 ships heading for England. Philip the Queen of Spain wants to overthrow Elizabeth, restore Catholicism, take the throne. Everyone expects her to hide, to stay safe in London while the men handle it. And this is where that Aries moon absolutely explodes into glory. August 9th, 1588. Tilbury. Elizabeth rides out to the troops in armor. At 55 years old, she's about to deliver one of the most legendary speeches in English history. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England, too. Aries moon doesn't hide, doesn't back down, shows up on the battlefield and dares anyone to question her courage. The English Navy destroys the Spanish Armada. Between their fire ships and brutal storms, the invincible fleet gets wrecked. England survives. Elizabeth's legend becomes untouchable. And here's what breaks me. Robert Dudley was there at Tilbury. By her side, Lieutenant General of her forces, in the speech she praises him as her Lieutenant General, than whom never prince commanded a more noble and worthy subject. 3 weeks later, September 4th, 1588, he dies suddenly at age 56. Probably malaria or stomach cancer, Elizabeth is devastated. When she hears the news, she locks herself in her rooms. Her advisors have to break down the door. His last letter to her, she keeps it in a casket by her bed for the rest of her life. Writes his last letter on it in her own hand. That 7th house, Saturn strikes again. The person she loved most, gone. Just like her mother, just like everyone she's ever been close to. She never recovers from losing Robert. Oh, she keeps ruling, keeps performing. But there's a shadow over her after 1588. Her final years show the Virgo perfectionism becoming harder to maintain. The Earl of Essex, Leicester's stepson, becomes her favorite in the 1590s. She's in her 60s, he's in his 20s, and she's attached to him partly because he reminds her of Robert. But Essex is reckless, arrogant. In 1601, he leads a rebellion against her, actually tries to overthrow her, and she has to order his elimination, another person she cared about, another betrayal. Another reminder that Saturn in Cancer was right all along. Emotional bonds are dangerous. March 24th, 1603. Richmond Palace. Elizabeth is 69 years old. She's been queen for 45 years. Longer than almost anyone thought possible for a woman ruling alone. She dies without ever naming an heir officially. That Virgo perfectionism made her reluctant to make the choice. But everyone knows it'll be James VI of Scotland, Mary Queen of Scots' son. The irony is wild. She remained unmarried, childless. But her legacy births an empire, the Elizabethan age, Shakespeare, English naval dominance, a cultural golden age. So here's what Elizabeth's chart proved. Sometimes, refusing traditional feminine roles is exactly what makes you legendary. Her Virgo sun took trauma and turned it into strategy, took chaos and created order, took a woman in a man's world and made her untouchable by refusing to be accessible. Her Saturn in Cancer meant she could never feel safe in partnership. But instead of letting that destroy her, she channeled it into a different kind of marriage. She married England, made the entire country her partner. Her Capricorn rising understood that image is reality, that if you control the narrative hard enough, you control history itself. Her Aries moon gave her the courage to do what no one expected, to ride into battle, to rule alone, to refuse to be diminished. And that Jupiter in Leo in the 7th house, it proved that sometimes your fortune comes not from partnership, but from strategic refusal of partnership. From understanding that commitment is the trap and freedom is the power. The Virgin Queen's virginity wasn't about purity, it was about control. It was Virgo's analytical genius combined with trauma survival, creating a reign that defined an era. She showed the world that a woman doesn't need a husband to have power. Sometimes refusing to share that power is the only way to keep it. Elizabeth I turned her chart's hardest placements into her greatest strengths. The wounds became weapons. The trauma became strategy. and the little girl who watched her mother get eliminated at 2 years old became the greatest monarch England has ever known. 45 years, alone, unmatched, legendary. Very Virgo of her, honestly.